On today's show, we recap NHL Draft weekend and Brad Treliving's busy weekend of work. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. What's happening, Dave? How we feeling on a Monday coming off a big, long NHL draft weekend?
Yeah, you talk about long weekend. I worked on Friday.
Lots happened since Friday. A lot has happened since we last recorded. Went 6 weeks of silence from Brad Treliving and the Maple Leafs. Then all of a sudden, everything is happening. Everything happened, over the course of the weekend. Tavares, he signs an extension. He's sticking around in Toronto. Matthew Knies signed his extension Sunday as well, so no offer sheet threat coming into him. He's sticking around for 6 more years. And then there's the Marner report. Oh, boy, this thing is getting very, very interesting with one Mitch Marner. Where do you want to start? With Marner, Tavares? Like, we start positive with the Tavares and Knies extensions, or do we get right into the Marner stuff? What do you think?
Let's start with the Marner stuff just because it's fresh, right?
Okay.
The new stuff.
All right. You want to detail to the people exactly what's going on? Because basically yesterday there was a tweet by Darren Dreger that said, hearing Marner could be doing a bit of a sign-in trade, could be sent to the Vegas Golden Knights for his rights, and there could be a deal in place for him to sign with Vegas. And then it's been radio silent ever since. It's now been a couple of days, and we haven't heard anything about that, or at least no concreteness has come from it. But then there was a added wrinkle from our pal Elliot Friedman in his post-draft 32 Thoughts, the podcast that he released Sunday morning. Would you like to go into detail as to exactly what that meant and why this has become quite the muddy situation with Marner, the Buds, and the Vegas Golden Knights?
So it all kind of started with people wondering, why would Vegas consider trading anything for Marner, even in a potential sign-in trade, when they could just wait until July 1st to get him signed? So Elliot made it known that the league sent a memo to teams to talk about, avoid tampering. Don't get caught tampering. This is what you are going to get punished for. I actually had the tweet up earlier with all the stuff. Essentially, you don't want to get caught tampering.
No, draft picks, fines, the whole nine.
Not just for the team, but the player could also get in trouble too. Like the player can get fined and suspended. In a worst case scenario, expulsion. So I don't know what you would have to do to get yourself expelled from the league. But yeah, you don't want to be in a position to get caught with that. So Elliot pretty much said that, there's kind of a buzz that if the Leafs, I actually found the tweet right here, that if the if Marner were to sign with Vegas and Vegas wouldn't do the deal, which reportedly would include Nicholas Waugh, the center, that the Leafs would consider filing for tampering charges to the league, basically saying, Vegas has done some work here. We want this investigated. And just so you can see here, like forfeiture of draft picks, the deal could get terminated. Like it could get pretty bad. And as Friedman kind of said, the reason why the league put this out there is they're kind of looking to make an example out of a club.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me was kind of the interesting part. Like some people are just like, the league won't do anything because it's Vegas. And I'm like, the league also doesn't want to be known for having players being tampered with. I don't know if you remember back in, I think it was 20 when Stamkos was a free agent.
Stamkos and PK Subban, Jim Benning said, "Yeah, we're going to try and go after both of them," and he got fined for it. The
He got
team got
fined
fined, and
$50K because it wasn't even the legal tamper. All he had to do was wait for the legal tampering period, and the guy couldn't wait. And he got fined $50K for just saying it, not even actually doing it.
which doesn't exist anymore. There is no legal tampering, period. So technically, by the letter of the law, now we know that all players and agents and teams break this law and tamper all the time. That's kind of the part that does make you roll your eyes. Like, it's not just Marner and the Vegas Golden Knights, it's every team. So legally, no team is supposed to speak with an agent about a particular player who is signed under contract with another team until that contract is over. These contracts do not technically end until noon of July 1st. So technically, Mitch Marner's agent, which is Darren Ferris,
Yeah,
it's Darren Ferris, right? Darren Ferris is not allowed to talk to the Vegas Golden Knights about Mitch Marner and about what he might be looking to get in terms of a contract, and he can't be, making the sales pitch. It's only supposed to be the Maple Leafs speaking with Marner's representatives. So reports out there that the Maple Leafs might be willing to actually file a complaint of tampering, and they believe that there is some tampering going on behind the scenes, and essentially they're blackmailing the Vegas Golden Knights, and it sounds as though they're basically saying, give us this, that, right? Give us Nicolas Roy, and maybe there's something else possibly involved in the deal. I thought I had seen someone else say that Nick Hague might be part of the deal as well, but it sounds like
that was Bruce Garriock who reported that, based on what league executives are saying. Well, Nick Hague, literally as we're recording this, got traded to Nashville.
Yeah, and signed an extension.
A 4-year, $5.5 million per year extension.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of glad that didn't.
Mr. Trotz, thank you for not putting the Leafs in that situation.
Yeah. But so that's pretty much where it stands. And as of now, as of the recording of this, it's just after midnight. It is Monday, June 30th, technically. And he is at this point, what are we? We're 30 hours away from free agency. As we record this, by the time a lot of people are listening, we'll be within, 26, 27, 24 hours from free agency and Marner and Vegas officially being able to speak and figure out what they want to do in terms of a contract, their structure, the bonuses, the actual term, dollars, whatever. But it sounds like the Leafs are kind of blackmailing Vegas. And at this point, it sounds as though they may have to give up something if the Leafs, for the Leafs not to make that tampering complaint, I guess. Like, where do you think this ends up going?
I'm very curious to see how much, like, if the Leafs are trying to salvage somewhat of a poker face with this, because, like, at the same time, the league is like, so you knew you were going to potentially file a tampering charge, so you try to get something out of Vegas, and people are like, that's a bit of extortion there. But I'm like,
that's what I don't understand. Like, extortion, that's the proper word. Blackmail, extortion, it's similar. But that's where I'm at with this too, right? Like, there's been so much smoke around it, right? With this Friedman report, like it's almost it almost kind of screws over the Leafs in this way. Like, now it almost feels like that deal can't really happen. Like, I don't know. Like, do you feel like this will still get over the finish line, and they'll come up with a trade, and they'll come up with some sort of deal to swap Marner's rights for Nicolas Roy or whatever ends up being the return? Like, I'm more on the fence now than I was the night that the report came out of the rights being traded for Nick Roy. It sounded like, okay, this is going to happen. Now it's like, I don't know if it can happen. Like, both parties will look so guilty, and then what? The NHL is just going to turn a blind eye to it all. Like at this point, they kind of are going to have to investigate for tampering as is, no? Regardless, even if a deal gets made, they're still going to have to investigate for, will
I
they
was
not?
always skeptical on this, and I was trying to figure out. I was on the 590 this morning, and I was kind of trying to figure out like why all of a sudden is this tampering thing like coming out. And we have to remember that this whole Vegas stuff started last year, right? When the Leafs approached Vegas, said, "Hey, would you consider doing a Marner deal? We'd be interested in Shea Theodore." And Vegas like, no. And it's like, well, the Leafs have been trying to move Marner, and the only way they could do it is if he waived his no movement clause. So I guarantee they went to the agent and said, "All right, if we were to move Mitch, where would he go?" And it probably, if I'm the agent, probably said, "Oh yeah, he'd probably go to Vegas," right? And that to me, that's kind of where I'm kind of trying to connect the dots a little bit here and being like, is this something that's been going on a little bit longer than just the past few weeks or even week, right? Has this been kind of building up this? And I think that's potentially where the tampering charge could have come in, right?
Oh, where you think this was something that like got planted into his head last summer, like play out the year and you've got a sweet contract waiting for you. Just don't sign anything, play out the year, and you'll have a contract waiting. You think that's
at no point has Mitch
this
Marner has shown any desire to negotiate with the Leafs, say he wants to come back.
Tinfoil hat theory there, though, Dave. Quite the tinfoil hat theory.
Just saying, it's a little convenient that now we're talking about tampering, and the only really way like tampering doesn't happen over a week, in my opinion. Like we know in Toronto when Kawhi Leonard came to the Raptors, the LA Clippers had a full court press the whole year to get him there. They were sending guys to Raptors game. They were being so open and blatant about it. Like, don't tell me that like this is the sort of thing I think that kind of. I'm sure Darren Ferris had this in his back pocket and say, Mitch, we might be able to get you to Vegas. Right. And then the Alex Pietrangelo stuff started to come about. And that doesn't happen by accident. Right. It doesn't happen unless they have a big target that they're going for and they got to clear some significant cap space for.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what he's talking about, it came out today that Alex Pietrangelo does plan on undergoing some surgeries and likely to miss the entire season next year and might not play. And if that's the case, his contract's going to end up on LTIR, and that opens up the space for Marner. That gives them enough room where they'll be able to bring in Mitch Marner. And if they want to open up some more cap space, I think that's where it does make slight sense to involve Nick Waugh in this deal, where if they do need to get rid of another, $3 million and create that room, okay, that's how you're going to get it done, right? You move him out, you're bringing in Mitch Marner for it, though. Like, yeah, could you wait and then trade him and get an asset? Probably. But you're also technically you are allowing other teams to enter the market if you wait until July 1st.
Yep.
Some team could come in and just be like, screw it. We're going to give you 4 years. We're going to give you 15 per. He probably takes that. Like if a team comes in and just blows it out of the water, like Anaheim comes in and gives them some stupid number, literally just like 15 million for the next 4 years. I'll give you 60 sheets. He probably would have to take it. So if you're Vegas, if you wait, you are allowing that to be a possibility. It's unlikely, but you're allowing it to be a possibility. Or you could simply just, all right, let's give you Nicholas Waugh, and then we get Marner, we get this signed before July 1st, and then he's a Golden Knight. We don't risk anyone else getting a chance to talk to him. Like that is the reason as to why they would give up an asset for him, to basically make them the only suitors to negotiate a contract so that Marner doesn't have, in a ton of leverage. He still does because he can leave, obviously, but this deal sounds as though it's already negotiated. Like it's 4 years in the 12 million range. Like that's being widely reported.
That to me is also like, how do we know what maybe Marner knows what he wants to get? Like that's just so specific. 4 years. Like it was starting to come out that he may not do the max, even the 7 years. And I'm like, how? Who team has been negotiating that? He's not negotiating with the Leafs, and that's the only team he can negotiate with right now.
Exactly. So,
by the way, going to the going to Vegas in that deal, Colton Sissons and
Okay.
Jeremy Lazon, who those aren't
Okay.
cheap almost that's almost $5 million right there that they're kind of adding. So I don't know what Vegas is up to, man. This is
That's
weird.
interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess they're just adding players to their. They're just adding players, I guess, like NHLers. Like I guess Colton Sissons would maybe replace Nicolas Waugh. Jeremy Lauzon replaces Nick Hag. Like that's kind of what that does, I suppose, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think Sissons is as good as Waugh, but I'm just saying he, can play that fourth line center role if they need one. But anyways, yeah, it's murky. I'm curious how this is all going to play out. I mean, by the time we get back up on the pod, Tuesday, I'm sure we'll have an answer to this. There'll either be a trade in place and done, and then a Marner extension with Vegas, or he's going to market July 1st, and we'll see what happens with the tampering. But yeah, I'm kind of all for Toronto extorting Vegas. I'll be honest with you. If that's what's happening, I'm kind of all for it. So hopefully. Because I'll be honest, like I like Nicolas Waugh. I think he's a good player. All right, like obviously, if it was an even playing field and Marner had no leverage and it's a 1-for-1, okay, different story. But when it's okay, trade Marner's rights when he's not coming back, and you can either get nothing or you can make this trade and get Nicolas Waugh. Pretty good alternative. Pretty good alternative, I would say. Just a solid third line, fourth line center who's very dependable in his own end, can kill penalties, 40 or so points per season, reliable player. So I like Nicolas Waugh. I hope this thing kind of gets to the finish line. It's gotten very noisy. And I wonder if both teams are kind of taking a step back now that this report has gotten out there. I guess we'll see. Any final comments on the Marner thing before I get into Tavares and Knies?
Nah, let's push the train forward.
All right, buddy. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, talk about the good vibes in Toronto. John Tavares, Matthew Knies, both extended over the weekend, and both to pretty good deals. A win for Brad Treliving and a rare win for the Leafs organization when it comes to extensions with their stars. We'll talk about those next on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and when they're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're locked into the Locked On Leafs podcast each and every day, and subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast as well for that daily dose of Maple Leafs content. We go all the way through the summer too. So just because the season's over, the cup's handed out, and free agency is right around the corner, we'll still continue to bring you the daily Leafs news all summer long. And the big news of the weekend, I mean, first Friday, we got the extension announced for John Tavares. He returns 4 more years, $4.38 million. And then Sunday afternoon, Matthew Knies gets his extension, 6 years, $7.75. Let's start with Tavares because that's the one that really kind of came down first, and really it was just such a big win for the organization. I mean, we've been talking about this deal, what it could look like, the speculation of, well, could he sign something, in the 4s? Is it going to be in the 5s, 6s? Oh, Brock Nelson's deal came out. Is he going to have to pay $6.5-7 million for him? Are they undervaluing him, or is he overvaluing himself? Well, he ends up signing a pretty team-friendly deal, 4 years, $4.38 million. What'd you make of that contract, Dave?
Yeah, because it was kind of like initially I saw 4 years. I was looking for the number, and you see the 4.3, and you're just like, hold 4.38. Are we kidding right now? Like, and
Yeah,
a bunch of people got, oh, do we like this deal? Do we like this deal? And I'm like, how do you
love
not
it.
like this deal? Like, it's clearly this was a deal that John Tavares signed without the agent probably recommending it. Like, he basically made the decision. I'm good with this. Let's sign it. I want to be a Leaf. Let's get it done.
Yeah. Why he couldn't get up to 4.5? I'm not sure. Is there a
Well, there was
significance
the
to the
deferred. It
3.8?
was the deferred money. Technically would have been at 4.5, but because there was the
Okay.
deferred money, it
Okay.
reduced the cap. It's just another way that Tavares said, okay, like 4.5, but defer some of the money. Make the cap hit a bit cheaper.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. So with the deferred money, it kind of cut out an extra 120,000 a year, I guess,
Yeah.
from that contract, and he'll get that later down the road. Okay, makes sense. But this is a win. I mean, if you would have told me that Tavares, what do you think? How many years would he have to sign for Tavares to accept 4.38 as a cap? I would have said, oh, it's probably got to be a 6-year deal. To be under 4.5, probably gonna have to be a 6-year deal. You're looking at like a Chris Tanev like contract, where that's gonna have to be it. The fact that he only signed for 4 years and still took 4.3 is just it's a big win, man. Like this is the biggest contract win that the Maple Leafs have had in a long time. A long,
Long
long
term
time.
wise too.
Yeah, and with
Well,
term, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah, like they won some like 1-year deals or 2-year deals that have turned out to be great. Like the 2 years they had Michael Bunting, like that was a pretty solid deal that they had him there making like league minimum, contributing on the top line. And they've had some other solid guys. Zach Hyman has had when he was making peanuts, he was a very productive player. William Nylander's deal was solid for a while. But in terms of like being able to get term here, like they got the right term, they got the right number, and Tavares he fills a need. Like we talked about it ad nauseum. There's no replacement for this guy out there right now. Like you would have to go the trade route in order to replace John Tavares, and they don't really have the assets to do that. So realistically, getting him signed was crucial. And I thought that the Leafs had lost a little bit of leverage. And I figured maybe that they would have to pay a little bit more. Like I thought this was going to come in over 5 million. I thought we were looking at a $5.5 million deal on like a 4-year term. To come in at 4.38 by 4, huge win for Treliving and the Maple Leafs organization. Massive win.
Yeah, it is a big win because these deals don't happen very often, right? And like Tavares could have been, he would have had every right to say, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna go and see what the market has to offer me. And like he would have been well within his right to do it. But in the end, the Leafs leaned on the one thing that maybe we wish they had done a lot more is Tavares' willingness to stay in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. This was John Tavares saying, yeah, I want to stay here and I want to make it work. And I think in a way too, it's a bit of a message from Tavares to the rest of the team and just kind of set the tone and saying, I'm locked into this. Like this
Yeah,
is
I
where I
took a
want to
bit
be.
less. Now it's time for you to take a little less. Right? And you could argue that maybe Knies left a little bit on the table. I mean, it's a very fair deal, like the Knies contract, but like he signed it today, right? He signed it on Sunday. He didn't wait
Yep.
until the very last minute to take the deal. He finally got something that worked that he thought was a good enough contract for him that was great. He didn't squeeze to get to 8 million AAV, right? He took the 775 and said, "Sure, I'll sign." Right? Did that have something to do with Tavares leaving a little money on the table? Possibly. Possibly.
Mhm.
Because based on the contract comparables that we talked about, 8 million seemed about right for him on a 6 to 8 year term. So did he leave a lot of money on the table? No, but he got the deal done, and it starts with a 7. So you're kind of happy about that. And maybe again, it had something to do with Tavares. But what I will say, what I like about this JT deal, he's not going to be your number 2 center for the entirety of the 4 years. He may only give you one more year as the number 2 center on this team. But at 4.38, it still allows you to find a guy to replace him while being able to move him to the wing and or to 3C possibly. Either way, at 4.38, that cap hit, not detrimental to making a future move to replace him and still have him on the roster as a contributor. That's what I also like about that number.
Yeah, it's the flexibility that it provides the team. It doesn't, and I really now it kind of frees Tavares from a bit of criticism of what he is currently and what he will be in a few years from now. And I think that's another big win for the Leafs, is they don't have to worry about telling Tavares, hey, we don't think you're 2C anymore. It might be time to move you to the wing. The compensation will say so too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, if they paid him the 7.5 that, Brock Nelson got, that's with the idea of him being the 2C for the length of that deal.
He's such a humble guy and such a team player, and he wants to be here so bad that he let them strip the captaincy off of him and didn't make us think about it.
Yeah.
I think he'll be more than ready, prepared, and willing to move to the wing or move to 3C if he's unable to do the job anymore of being a top 6 contributor. And again, I don't think it's going to be this year. They may get 2 solid years out of Tavares still. I mean, he scored 38 goals last year.
Yeah.
They very well could still have 2 great seasons left in him, maybe 3, maybe 4. I don't know. Like, who knew that Marchand was going to be this good this late into his career, right? Like, Tavares really has blossomed in Craig Berube's system because he asked him just to play a north-south hockey game. And that's what Tavares is best at, right? Cycle the puck and score some goals in and around the net. It's what Tavares is best at. So all around, it's a great deal. It really, really is. You can have that argument of whether or not bringing back JT, does that really change the DNA enough of this group, of this core? Like, okay, Tavares is back. Marner's leaving, but Tavares is back. Willie's here. Matthews is here. Marner, Morgan Riley is here. Have you changed the DNA enough? You could have that conversation. I'm sure we will. Today's not the day to have that discussion. It's a worthwhile point, though, which we can get into in the coming weeks. We got a whole summer to have those discussions, Dave. But it is, definitely worthy of a discussion point at sometime here in the summer. Okay, let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll get into Matthew Knies, the contract that he signed, and the couple of draft picks that the Maple Leafs were able to make. Some surprising ones, but a definite theme throughout the draft for the Buds in 2025. So we'll get to all that and more next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. And some big news Sunday afternoon came across the timeline. Matthew Knies had signed his extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs, 6 years, $7.75 million. Dave, what were your first initial thoughts when you saw that deal?
Yeah, well, initially I found out while I was cutting the grass. My sister comes out with the phone. And she's like, they signed him. I'm like, they signed who? They signed Knies. I'm like, oh. I looked at it. I'm like, is that a 7? That's a 6? I'm like, I was surprised because we were told that this was going to take less term so you can lower the cap hit. Or if you wanted to get that, higher long-term deal, it was going to cost you $8-9 million.
Yeah.
But guess what? None of that happened. Like what people were predicting with this contract.
The Athletic had him a market value of $9.1 million.
Unreal.
They got him for $7.75 for the next 6 years until he's 29 years old. So basically through his prime. right? Like he'll be exiting his prime at that point, and he'll probably, have another nice contract once he's done that. But they're going to get him through his prime. And to get that at under 8 million, considering what he did in just his second year in the league, 29 goals, 58 points, was a big time contributor, made himself a staple on the power play. I think that this guy can easily be a 30 plus goal guy every year, 30 plus goals, 60 to 70, maybe 70, 75 points a season. Like if he could do that, making sub 8 million, you got yourself a great deal. Plus all the other stuff that he brings with his intensity, with his competitiveness, with his big body, his ability to forecheck, back check. He's a great player, and he's proven that he can rise to the occasion in the playoffs, which is something that clearly Treliving and Berube loved about Matthew Knies this year. I know that for us, he's probably probably the most consistent forward before the injury that the Maple Leafs had in the postseason this year. And to get that guy for 6 more years at 7.75, I thought another great signing for the Maple Leafs and Brad Treliving. He went 2 for 2 on these deals this weekend and did a great job on both.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny considering how things were starting out in his tenure, and people were worried if he was going to be able to get any value for contracts because, like, he paid top dollar for Matthews, he did pay top dollar for Nylander,
Mm-hmm.
but since that, like, I feel like
I will say this though. Who was in charge when he got those contracts?
and that was a conversation I had with our boy James from Offside Hockey Talk. It's like, are the shackles sort of free for Treliving to do what he believes is necessary?
Right, because Brendan Shanahan was the guy who signed off on the Matthews contract, the guy who signed off on the Nylander contract, the initial Marner contract from years ago. Now that he's not around, Treliving is free to kind of do whatever he wants. And if he felt that Tavares, it wasn't worth bringing him back for more than this much, they probably would have done it. He thought that they needed to get Knies under 8 million, and he wasn't willing to go a penny more. And he eventually got to that number, and he got Knies to sign. Whereas before, it sounded, Dubas and Shanahan just gave the players whatever they wanted because they didn't want to lose those players, because that was the core they thought that they were going to win with, had to win with. It didn't happen. And they paid every penny that they possibly could to try and make it happen. And again, it didn't work out. But now it sounds like Treliving is willing to roll the dice a little more and basically say, if you want to be here, you want to be a Maple Leaf, here's the number. Sign it or sayonara. And that's where it's at with Mitch Marner. Like, they say they continued to talk or whatever. And Marner's like, no, I'm not talking. He's like, okay, well, here's the number. If you're not willing to sign that number, peace. Get out of here. We don't need you here. We don't want you here. We want people who want to be Maple Leafs, and I appreciate that from Brad Treliving. He made me a big fan of his this weekend. I liked what he did last summer. Thought he had a great, outstanding free agency last summer. But now that he's like the top guy in front office, these 2 signings in particular are unlike the signings we had seen in the past. Mm-hmm. And it's making me feel good about the future of the Maple Leafs. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it does. And you also consider how much he's really trying to do something with this Marner situation, right? Like,
yeah,
the fact that he has been,
has been trying.
He has been trying
for a year.
Like, people have criticized Treliving so much. You're just gonna let him walk out the door. This guy's been trying to trade him for a whole year, and like he's handcuffed by something another GM has not just a GM but the president. Right, signing off on giving him full authority to have all the decision making power, right? And so, like, I give Treliving credit that he's actually willing to try to do things differently here. And that's and I mean, I guess in a way, can you credit Shanahan for bringing him in, because part of that was Shanahan deciding to hire him, but also,
it was also a slam dunk.
Yeah, right. like Keith Pelly also probably just saying to Brad, do what you need to do, right? Like, I'll support you. Just do what you need to do. And so, yeah,
Look,
it gives me.
I got some flyers to put out in Raptorland. Here you go. Do what you got to do here.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
you're at the Raptors right now.
Jeez, yeah. But I think you also just look at where this is going towards free agency. Like, they don't really need to do a whole lot, right? Like, they got a couple things they want to do,
Yeah,
but they don't need.
but they got
to.
13 million to do stuff though. Like,
They
there's
do.
money there for them to do something, and they could do something big.
Is it 13 or is it 14? I saw it was like just over 14.
I got Puckpedia up right now, 13 and a half, 13.57. Yeah, 13.57.
With the current contracts, I wonder if there's some
You
other.
could probably squeeze that into more. Yeah, you're right. You could probably squeeze that into more realistically, because that's with how many contracts? 19. Yeah, 19 of 23 contracts. So technically, you only need to carry 18. So you could probably shed one. No, you need 20, actually. So
Yeah, you do. But like
you're
Ryan
probably about 20.
Reeves, that deal's gonna go, right? If you
Yeah.
can move, like there's such a big opportunity to reshape things, and I think Treliving understands it. And look, we see it. He spends a year, something doesn't work. All right, we're fixing it. Goaltending, redone. Blue line, complete makeover. Now he's
Yeah.
like, okay, this team needs to learn how to score and play in the playoffs. Let's go and do that now.
Yeah. And if
Even
they
the
can
draft.
even
We
the
haven't even
draft.
talked to draft yet.
Well, yeah, and like we could really quickly get into it. We're running a little long. We'll spend time, next week once free agency's kind of done. It's so quick. We'll spend time next week really diving into each player, but you could tell that that's exactly what they're looking to do in the draft. Man, they want to be harder to play against. That's something that for the last 2 years, Treliving has been telling us. That's what he wants to do. Wants to make this team harder to play against for the opposition. And you look at the draft that they had, and this was the first draft under Mark Leach, who came from Dallas, who spent a long time in Detroit scouting system. So, it's a brand new scout who came in and ran things this year. But there was one clear motive, and that was find me some big boys. That was what they wanted to do. And if you listen to Mark Leach post draft, he essentially said we want guys who are competitive, who are going to work their tails off, and guys who are big, strong, can skate, and can fill roles. Like he knows he drafted a bunch of role players in this one. It's not they know that they didn't draft a Mitch Marner. They know they didn't draft a Nylander or a Tavares or a Marner or Matthews or a Morgan Riley. Like they know they didn't draft superstars in this class. I mean, their first pick was until 64. Granted, anyone could turn into anything, obviously, but their goal was clearly to get workhorse players with size who are going to make things harder to play against for the opposition. That was the big theme in this draft this year. Look at that. Bring that board back up. Bring that board back up. Tennis Luke Cobbler, their first pick they took in the 64th pick. 6'4", 190 pounds. Tyler Hopkins, 6'1", 185 pounds. William Bell, 6'4", 225. Harry Nanzi, 6'3". Ryan Fellinger, 6'4". Matthew Hilkar, 6'3". Like every single one of these players were big, tall boys. Only one of them was below 6'3". One of their picks, and it was Tyler Hopkins, who a lot of people liked and thought could have been a pick at 64. Probably one of their best value selections of the weekend. But that was a clear goal for them, was to get bigger and stronger and try and fill in some of those depth roles that they're solely going to need in the next few years if they want to be competitive for long term.
And that's it, right? Like a lot of people say, projects. Like the Leafs aren't expecting these guys to do anything right now, so you're going to give them that time to fill out their frames and really show what they can do. And like it's just crazy that like is it like this is what we're going to come to expect with every player being hulking monsters. And yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to be like the best draft ever, but I'm excited to see a change in philosophy.
Yeah. They took the first pick, big Norwegian kid, 6'4", 190-pound center, projects to be a bottom 6 player, but that's okay. You need those guys. What'd they give up for Scott Laughton? A first-round pick and Nikita Grabankin for Scott Laughton? Was that deal? Grabankin, yeah, first, yeah, for a bottom 6 player. So if you have that in place, they don't got to trade for it and give up big assets. So big deal. You spent a second-round pick. It's better than 5 years down the line trading a first and one of your top prospects for it, right? Like that's the hope. You need role players at the end of the day, and drafting them is a lot better than trying to acquire them at the deadline. That's all I got to say. I'm sure we certainly will. I'm sure. I know for a fact we're going to dive deeper into the draft and the draft haul that the Maple Leafs got in the coming weeks here. But free agency right around the corner tomorrow. We're going all out, Dave. We're going to talk and give our top free agents that the Maple Leafs should target tomorrow's free agency. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. It's one of my favorite days. The frenzy starts at noon, and I'll be glued to the TV watching, waiting to see what the Maple Leafs do. And when that happens, Dave and I will be back here to record a podcast for you guys and put that out just like we will do every single day all summer long. So make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the show on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at @Mick_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow to tee up free agent frenzy. Dave and I have our best free agent picks that the Maple Leafs should target. Until then, keep it locked right here on the Locked On Leafs.